She had been humiliated, forced out of her seat in front of an entire cabin of passengers. But just minutes later, the very flight attendant who had shamed her was about to face consequences that no one saw coming. This wasn't just an ordinary flight. What happened next would send shockwaves not only through the passengers on board, but through the entire airline itself. Ava Carter stepped onto the plane with effortless confidence. She wasn't flashy, but there was something about her, something that made people take notice. Dressed in a tailored blazer over a sleek dress, her natural curls framed her face perfectly. In one hand, she held a leather laptop bag, and in the other, her boarding pass. She moved through the aisle calmly, scanning the seat numbers until she arrived at her assigned seat, first class. As she settled in, placing her bag in the overhead compartment, she offered a polite nod to the passenger beside her. Pulling out a small notebook, she began jotting down notes, completely unbothered by the occasional curious glance from others. But then, she felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. She glanced up, and there she was, Miranda Scott, a flight attendant moving briskly through the cabin. Her uniform was pristine, her sharp eyes assessing every passenger she passed. But when her gaze landed on Ava, she froze. Something about Ava caught her attention, and her expression hardened. Without hesitation, Miranda approached. "Excuse me," she said, her tone clipped but controlled. "Can I see your boarding pass, please?" Ava looked up, surprised but unfazed. She handed it over with a small, polite smile. Miranda scanned the pass, her frown deepening. "This is for first class?" she asked, almost as if she didn't believe what she was seeing. Ava's voice was steady. "That's correct." Miranda hesitated for a moment before handing the pass back, her lips pressed into a thin line. Without another word, she turned and walked away, but it was clear she wasn't finished. Ava sighed and returned to her notes, unaware that Miranda had stopped near the galley, whispering to another flight attendant while casting glances in her direction. Something was brewing. Minutes later, Miranda returned, this time with an unmistakable air of authority. "Miss Carter, could you step aside for a moment? I need to verify something." Ava blinked, but remained composed. She grabbed her laptop bag and followed Miranda toward the galley. The murmurs in first class grew louder. Miranda folded her arms. "I'm going to have to ask you to move to a different seat. There seems to be a mistake with your booking." Ava's brows furrowed. "A mistake? I booked this ticket weeks ago. It's confirmed. Can you double check?" Miranda's voice turned colder. "Already checked. I don't believe this seat is appropriate for you. You'll need to move to the main cabin." The words hung in the air like a slap. A flicker of disbelief crossed Ava's face. Then came the annoyance, but she quickly composed herself. "My ticket is valid. Why would I need to move?" Miranda stiffened. "Either you move, or I'll have to call security to assist." Ava's eyes narrowed, but instead of arguing, she simply nodded, returning to her seat to collect her belongings. The whispers in first class turned into full-on conversations as passengers watched her walk toward the back of the plane, her posture straight, her face unreadable. She took her new cramped seat in the economy section, slid her bag under the chair, and pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen as she typed a message. When she hit send, a small knowing smile played on her lips. Back in first class, Miranda carried on with her duties, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Ava's composure unsettled her. Shouldn't she have been more upset? More dramatic? Yet, Ava had simply walked away. Something about it didn't sit right. Minutes passed. Then, the in-flight phone rang in the galley. Dennis, the senior flight attendant, picked it up. His face changed instantly. "It's for you," he said, handing Miranda the receiver. "They're asking for you by name." Miranda's stomach tightened as she took the phone. "This is Miranda." The voice on the other end was calm but firm. "This is the airline's executive office. We've received a direct complaint regarding a first-class passenger. You are to ensure all passengers are treated with respect and are not to alter seating arrangements without proper justification. You will provide a full report upon landing." Miranda's face drained of color. "Of course," she stammered. "I'll make sure everything is handled appropriately." As she hung up, her hands trembled slightly. Dennis studied her. "Something wrong?" he asked. Miranda forced a tight smile. "Nothing." But her mind was racing. Who is Ava Carter? And what had she just set into motion? Meanwhile, Ava sat quietly in her seat, scrolling through her phone. A new message appeared on her screen. "All set. They're monitoring." Ava slid the phone back in her bag, taking a slow sip of water, her expression unreadable. She had all the time in the world. Passengers in economy had begun to take notice. One man leaned over, whispering, "That flight attendant's been giving you a hard time, huh?" Ava glanced at him, her lips curving into a faint smile. "It's nothing I can't handle." Meanwhile, Miranda couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. Then, Dennis handed her a folded note. "Captain wants to see you." Her pulse quickened as she made her way to the cockpit. The moment she stepped inside, the door closed behind her. Captain Harris turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Miranda, we received another call from the executive office. The passenger you moved, Miss Ava Carter. She's not just any passenger." Miranda's breath hitched. "She's connected to the airline's board of directors. We're under direct orders to ensure she's treated with the utmost respect." The color drained from Miranda's face. Back in economy, Ava simply gazed out the window, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. She never raised her voice, never caused a scene. But now, the entire airline was paying attention. And Miranda? She had just made the worst mistake of her career. Her steps faltered as she returned to the galley, her breathing uneven. The captain's words echoed in her mind, each syllable hitting like a gut punch. "She's connected to the board." How could she have missed something so crucial? Miranda prided herself on her instincts, but now they had led her astray. She gripped the counter tightly, her knuckles turning white. Across the space, Dennis watched her, his hand steady as he arranged the snack cart. "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" he asked, his tone a careful balance of curiosity and caution. Miranda hesitated, then sighed. "The woman I moved, she has ties to the board. The captain just told me." Dennis straightened. His expression darkened, shifting from mild curiosity to something more serious. "The board? You're serious?" Miranda nodded, her face pale. "I had no idea. I don't know what I thought." She stopped short, realizing how it sounded. Dennis folded his arms. "You thought she didn't belong in first class?" Miranda turned away, pretending to be busy, but the heat of shame prickled her skin. She had made a mistake, a big one. Meanwhile, in the main cabin, Ava glanced at her watch. The flight was nearly halfway through, but her patience remained intact. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and typed a message. Almost time. Sliding the phone back in her bag, she leaned back, her expression unreadable. Across the aisle, a man who had spoken to her earlier leaned in slightly. "Are you sure you're okay?" That flight attendant seemed pretty rattled earlier. Ava offered a faint smile, her tone polite yet firm. "I appreciate your concern, but everything is under control." The man hesitated, nodding slowly. There was something about Ava's confidence that left him unsettled. Back in first class, Miranda struggled to regain her composure. Every movement felt mechanical. She went through the motions, checking on passengers, forcing a brittle smile. But her mind spun relentlessly. Ava's composure, her unwavering calm, it wasn't normal. A chime sounded through the cabin. The captain's voice filled the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for choosing to fly with us today. Our flight is progressing smoothly, and we are on schedule for an on-time arrival. As always, let us know if you need anything." The announcement was standard, yet to Miranda, it felt heavy. She glanced at the main cabin, her eyes locking onto Ava. To her surprise, Ava met her gaze and nodded, a small, subtle gesture, not smug, not confrontational, just an acknowledgement. A shiver ran down Miranda's spine. She turned to Dennis, her voice low. "This isn't normal. She's too calm, too in control." Dennis exhaled sharply. "I've been with this airline long enough to know one thing. When you cross someone with real power, you don't get to walk away unscathed." Miranda swallowed hard, but before she could respond, the galley phone rang. "Galley, this is Miranda," she answered, forcing her voice steady. "This is the captain," came the reply. "We've received another communication from the executive office. Miss Carter is to be given full priority service for the remainder of the flight. Ensure she is comfortable, and personally apologize for any earlier inconvenience." Miranda's grip tightened on the phone. "Yes, sir," she managed before hanging up. Her heart pounded as she stepped out of the galley, clutching a glass of sparkling water. Every step felt like walking toward a firing squad. When she reached Ava's seat, she hesitated. "Miss Carter," Miranda began, her voice softer than it had been all flight. I wanted to personally apologize for any inconvenience earlier. It was a misunderstanding. Ava tilted her head slightly. A misunderstanding? Miranda's forced smile wavered. I didn't mean to disrupt your experience. Please accept this as a token of apology. She set the glass down, her fingers shaking slightly. Ava regarded it for a moment, then met Miranda's gaze. Thank you, she said, her voice neutral. But I think it's going to take more than a drink to fix this. Miranda's stomach twisted. Ava leaned back, watching her carefully. I believe the airline will address this appropriately after we land. Miranda nodded stiffly, her throat dry. If you need anything else, let me know. Ava didn't reply. Miranda retreated, her mind spiraling. She had underestimated Ava Carter, and now she was paying the price. As the plane began its descent, Ava glanced at her phone, sending one final message. We've landed. Be ready. When the aircraft touched down, Miranda forced a smile as passengers disembarked. But when Ava approached, she didn't rush. She moved with the same precision, the same quiet power. Miranda swallowed hard. Thank you for flying with us, Miss Carter. Ava stopped, her gaze sharp. I'm sure we'll be in touch. Then she was gone. Miranda barely had time to process the weight of those words before two uniformed officers stepped onto the plane. Are you Miranda Scott? One asked. Her breath caught. Yes, we need you to come with us. The world tilted beneath her feet as she was led off the plane, Dennis watching in silence. Outside, Ava stood near the gate, her phone in hand. She didn't need to watch what happened next. Everything was already in motion, and she was exactly where she wanted to be. At first, her voice was barely audible, a whisper lost in the hum of the flight. But that changed quickly. The officer leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Miss Carter isn't just a high-ranking executive at this airline, he said, voice steady measured. She's a major shareholder. Her complaint has reached the board, and they take these allegations very seriously. Miranda's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The officer continued, tone firm. Miss Carter's version of events has been corroborated by multiple passengers. We're giving you a chance to present your side, but make no mistake, this will not be brushed aside. Miranda's fingers dug into the table. She wanted to defend herself, explain, justify, but the weight in her chest told her the truth. There was no excuse that would stand up to scrutiny. She had made a snap judgment, a judgment that had just cost her everything. Meanwhile, at baggage claim, Ava Carter stood with effortless composure, her phone pressed to her ear. Yes, security has taken her in for questioning. Ensure the board reviews all footage and statements. I want this resolved thoroughly and professionally. A pause, a nod, and send me a copy of the final report. This can never happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. She ended the call as her suitcase appeared on the conveyor belt. With a smooth motion, she retrieved it, unfazed by the eyes watching her, some curious, others tinged with quiet respect. But Ava didn't acknowledge them. She had bigger things on her mind. Walking through the bustling terminal, she carried herself with purpose. What had started as an incident of humiliation had transformed into a moment of accountability, a shift in the power dynamic. And she wasn't done yet. Back in a cold, sterile room, Miranda sat frozen as the silence pressed in. The officers waited, their expressions unreadable. Finally, she forced out a breath. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was following protocol. I thought she didn't belong in first class. The officer leaned forward, eyes narrowing. And what exactly made you think that? Miranda hesitated, lips parting, but no answer came. She knew the truth. It was too ugly to say aloud. I don't know, she stammered. She just didn't act like the other passengers. A glance was exchanged between the officers. Not acting like other passengers isn't a reason to remove someone from their seat, especially when their ticket was valid. Did she break any rules? Violate any airline policies? Miranda swallowed hard. No, but the officer cut her off. Then you acted without cause. Miss Carter was within her rights, and your actions have placed the airline in a very difficult position. A sinking feeling spread through Miranda's chest. The facts were undeniable. Her decision had been based on nothing but assumption. And now, she was paying the price. Ava stepped outside the terminal just as a sleek black sedan pulled up. The driver stepped out, nodding respectfully. Miss Carter, everything has been arranged per your instructions. She slid into the back seat with practiced ease, immediately pulling out her phone. A notification from the airline's board caught her eye. She opened it, concise, to the point. The board was launching a full review, implementing new training, and ensuring disciplinary action was taken. Ava's lips curled into a satisfied smile. This wasn't about revenge. It was about change, and it was already happening. Back at the airport, the officers stood preparing to leave, but not before delivering a final, decisive blow. This matter will be escalated to the airline's disciplinary committee. You'll receive their decision soon. In the meantime, you are suspended from duty. Miranda felt the room spin. She wanted to fight back, to plead her case. But what argument was left? As the officers exited, leaving her alone, reality settled in. She had underestimated Ava Carter, and now she was paying the price. At that moment, Ava's car smoothly merged into traffic. She gazed out the window, feeling the weight of the day, but also a sense of clarity. Standing her ground hadn't just been about her. It had been about something bigger. And now, the system that allowed this to happen was being forced to change. Her phone buzzed again. A message from the airline CEO requesting a meeting. Ava typed a response. I'll make time tomorrow. Let's ensure this is handled properly. As the city skyline loomed ahead, Ava leaned back, exhaling. This chapter was closing, but the impact of her actions? That was just beginning. Meanwhile, Miranda sat in her car, staring blankly at the dashboard. Her phone buzzed. The message was curt, formal. Disciplinary hearing scheduled for tomorrow. Further details to follow. Her hands trembled. The hearing wasn't just a formality. It was the final nail in the coffin. She had spent years building her career, her reputation, and now it was unraveling. For the first time, Miranda allowed herself to feel it. Not anger, not frustration, just regret. Ava had never lost control of the situation. She had been in charge from the moment Miranda made her first mistake. And now, there was nothing left to do but face the consequences. Imagine boarding a flight, expecting nothing more than a routine journey, only to have your entire world flipped upside down. That's exactly what happened on Flight 287. A moment that started as a simple misunderstanding but spiraled into an incident that would change lives, careers, and an entire airline's policy forever. The room was tense. Executives sat across from Miranda Scott, their eyes sharp, their expressions unreadable. A senior official, his voice measured yet firm, leaned forward. Miss Scott, thank you for coming. We're here to discuss the incident on Flight 287 and the allegations against you. Miranda swallowed hard. Her throat was dry. Her hands clenched together in her lap. I understand, she whispered. The questioning began. Every detail was dissected, every moment replayed. Miranda tried to explain, but her words felt hollow, even to herself. I thought she was in the wrong seat, she murmured at one point, her voice barely steady. I was just trying to follow protocol. A sharp glance from one of the executives cut through the air. Protocol, he repeated, his eyebrow raised. According to our records, Ms. Carter presented a valid first-class ticket. At what point did you verify this before asking her to move? Silence. Miranda's palms grew damp. She hesitated before finally admitting, I didn't. The weight of that admission hung heavy in the air. Another executive, an older man with glasses, leaned forward. Miss Scott, this airline has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Your actions not only violated that policy, but jeopardized our reputation. Do you understand the severity of this situation? Miranda nodded slowly, her heart sinking. She did understand, and in that moment, she knew her career was over. As she left the room, the reality of her actions hit her harder than ever. This wasn't just about losing her job. This was about Ava Carter, the woman she had humiliated, the woman who had stood tall even as Miranda had stripped away her dignity. And for the first time, Miranda felt the full weight of what she had done. Not just the consequences for herself, but the harm she had inflicted on someone else. Across the city, Ava Carter sat in her office, a warm cup of tea in her hands, reading an email from the airline's board. The message was clear. They were taking action. A timeline was attached, outlining the mandatory training programs, policy revisions, and structural changes she had pushed for. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Her phone buzzed. A message from Maya, her trusted colleague. Miranda Scott has been officially terminated. Thought you'd want to know. Ava set her cup down slowly. It didn't bring her joy, nor did it feel like a victory. She wasn't the kind of person who found satisfaction in someone else's downfall. But this This was necessary. Actions had consequences, and change required accountability. Meanwhile, Miranda sat alone in her apartment, staring at the termination notice on her table. She had spent hours replaying the hearing, searching for some way to justify her actions. But there was no justification, only regret. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends and family, some offering sympathy, others barely hiding their judgment. She ignored them all. Instead, she turned on the TV, desperate for distraction. But fate had other plans. A news segment on workplace bias flickered onto the screen. And there, in the center of it all, was Ava Carter speaking with unwavering confidence about the importance of systemic change. Miranda watched, unable to look away. Ava wasn't just a passenger she had wronged. She was a force of change, standing up for something bigger than herself. For the first time, Miranda saw Ava in a different light. And for the first time, she saw herself for what she had become. She took a deep breath and reached for her laptop. This time, she wasn't trying to defend herself. This time, she was ready to take responsibility. The email was addressed to the airline's board, but its true purpose was clear. It was an apology, a sincere, heartfelt acknowledgement of her mistakes. Miss Carter, I owe you an apology. My actions on that flight were inexcusable. I acted on assumptions rather than facts, and I failed to see you for who you are, a valued passenger, and more importantly, a person who deserved respect. My behavior reflected poorly not only on me, but on the airline as a whole. For that, I am truly sorry. Ava received the email days later. She read it carefully, noting the tone of sincerity. People often apologize to lessen their guilt, to clean up their image. But something about Miranda's words felt different. It felt real. After a moment's hesitation, Ava typed a brief response. Thank you for your message. Accountability is the first step toward growth. I hope you continue on this path and use this experience to create positive change in the future. Weeks passed. The airline's changes were taking effect. Mandatory sensitivity training, improved policies, and a renewed commitment to fairness. Other airlines took notice, reaching out to Ava for guidance. The ripple effect had begun. One afternoon, Ava arrived at the airport, preparing for another flight. As she approached the gate, a staff member recognized her. Miss Carter, welcome back. We've upgraded your seat as a token of appreciation. Ava smiled, shaking her head. That's kind of you, but I'm fine where I am. She stepped onto the plane, immediately noticing something different. The crew moved with more attentiveness, more care. It wasn't perfect. Change never was, but it was better. And that was a start. Across the city, Miranda was also beginning a new journey. She had taken a job with a nonprofit focused on workplace diversity, using her own experience as a lesson in change. It wasn't easy. It never would be. But for the first time in her life, she was looking beyond herself. As Ava settled into her seat, she pulled out her notebook and jotted down a single line. Change begins with accountability, but it thrives on persistence. She closed her notebook, exhaled, and looked out at the vast sky. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt something unexpected. Hope. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, stay informed, stay aware, and always stand for what's right.